Do you remember when Minato was supposed to be the strongest shinobi of all time? In the beginning of the Naruto series, the fourth Hokage was considered to be, well, the God of Shinobi. He was never stated to be the God of Shinobi, this title came much later. However, it was much more implied that Minato had been the strongest ninja that had ever lived in the Leaf Village and possibly around the world. However, after we saw what happened in Naruto Shippuden, this is clearly not the case, and this is another one of the retcons done in the Naruto series. Let's explore this retcon that Kishimoto did later on in his series, and discuss whether it was good or bad for the story. But before that, please subscribe to this channel and like this video to help the channel out, and if you enjoy my content as well. Thank you so much. The first hint we received that Minato / the fourth Hokage was supposed to be the strongest ninja of all time came very early on in the very first chapter of Naruto when he seals the Nine Tails with a Naruto. He is stated to be a legendary shinobi, but of course, this doesn't mean all that much because there have been many legendary shinobis. He could have just been another very powerful ninja, but confirmation that he is actually the strongest one doesn't really take a long time to come. First, when they find out that Orochimaru has returned and he infiltrated the Chunin exams, Tobi says, well, if Minato was here, things would have been different. Now, of course, we know Minato was much stronger than Orochimaru, even later on after the retcon. But this is a first hint. However, the second hint comes when Hiruzen fights the first and the second Hokages when Orochimaru assaults the village. In that fight, it was simply stated that Hashirama and Tobirama were at their full strength. Hiruzen says, oh wow, they are as strong as I remember them, implying that there was no such a thing as a nerf to their Edo Tensei. So it's very easy to see, the power levels that Hashirama and Tobirama showed against Hiruzen were supposed to be their power levels for real when they were alive, when Kishimoto wrote that scene for the first time. So much so that the chapter that scene happens is called Hokage vs Hokage. It's supposed to be a Hokage level battle between three Hokages at the peak of their powers. Well, Hiruzen not so much at the peak of his powers, but still a very powerful Hokage. It's not as though Hashirama and Tobirama were weak when they fought Hiruzen in their Edo Tensei states. They were pretty strong compared to an average ninja, however, they were not nearly as strong as what we found out later in Naruto Shippuden, especially Hashirama, because if you just take a look at the 1,000-armed Buddha statue that he used against Madara, that's completely out of this world. That would destroy Hiruzen 1,000 times over. If 1,000 Hiruzens fought Hashirama at the same time, they would be all wiped out. It's no contest. And yet, when Hiruzen fought Hashirama and Tobirama, he was able to defeat them by sealing them with the Reaper Death Seal. Something that would never happen later on in the series when they are at their full power. And of course, this was something changed later on because Kishimoto thought that making the first Hokage stronger would be more interesting for the story. Another point of evidence we can take a look at is that when Orochimaru is bringing in the third coffin and the third coffin fails, Hiruzen is so glad he was unable to bring Minato back because Minato had already been sealed by the Reaper Death Seal and all that, so he couldn't just do it with the Edo Tensei. But Hiruzen was so relieved that it's obvious that Hiruzen considered Minato to be the strongest out of the other Hokages because Hiruzen had lived alongside all of them. He trained under Hashirama and Tobirama, and he oversaw Minato's ninja career during its entirety, so he would know very well the capabilities of the three of them. And in that point of the story, Hiruzen thought Minato was by far the most dangerous one and the one he would have absolutely no chance to fight against. After Naruto Part 1, we even get an arc somewhat dedicated to Minato. Of course, Kakashi and Obito were the focus, but we see Minato in action, and it's off-page, but Minato destroys an entire army of stone ninjas, 1,000 of them, which is a very impressive feat. The most impressive thing we had ever seen up until that point of the story. So it's very clear that Kishimoto is hyping Minato up like never before. The question is, when did Kishimoto decide to make Hashirama the actual God of Shinobi and the strongest Hokage instead of Minato? When did that happen? It's not easy to pinpoint, because it's very much obvious that he always intended Madara and Hashirama to fight in the Valley of the End. I mean, we saw the statues of them when Naruto and Sasuke fought there, so that's something that's always happened in the story. This epic confrontation between the two founders of the Leaf Village had always happened. And it is also implied that the collateral damage of the fight caused the Valley of the End to be formed. You know, the craters, the waterfalls and all that. We knew that before. But still, in our minds, Minato was the strongest. This begins to somewhat change with the introduction of Yamato and the concept of Hashirama cells, which will eventually become a staple in the series. Hashirama cells are gonna be the answer for everything, the ultimate hacks in the world. And Yamato definitely started that trend with him being implanted with Hashirama cells from a very early age and developing wood style and other abilities that Hashirama used to have. Though of course in a much lesser degree than Hashirama did. The thing is, the scale of the wood-style jutsus Yamato used weren't too far off from the Edo Tensei Hashirama that fought Hiruzen in the Chunin exams. So we already got a feeling that, okay, maybe Hashirama was stronger after all. And of course, you could imply that the Edo Tensei Hashirama didn't show off everything he had because there wasn't simply enough time, or because Hiruzen sealed him before he was gonna do anything else. But then Hashirama used Deep Forest Emergence, which is the staple wood-style jutsu. So it's not as though he didn't use his best tricks or anything like that. No! Still, I don't think that Kishimoto changed his mind and applied the retcon in that particular point of the story in the Kakuzu arc, because Kakuzu mentions that, well, he fought Hashirama before. Hashirama was the first Leaf Ninja he had ever fought, and that was supposed to be a hype statement. Kakashi says, oh, if you fought the first Hokage, then we're kids compared to him. Which should be the case, even though you're still comparing yourself to the first Hokage who fought Hiruzen in the Chunin exams. But, as we're gonna learn later, this fight, this Kakuzu versus Hashirama fight, is the biggest meme in the entire fandom, because there's absolutely no way Kakuzu did anything whatsoever. I could see Kakuzu being able to fight against the Edo Tensei Hashirama that fought against Hiruzen. He would still lose because Kakuzu is fodder, but I could see him fighting against him and surviving. Maybe Hashirama has, compassion and all that, lets Kakuzu live, but maybe he even gets a couple of hits in Hashirama, but Hashirama just heals himself because that's what he does, and then he quickly wins the fight. But if we consider Hashirama that fought Madara in the Valley of the End against Kakuzu, then I don't know, man. If you think that fight has like a 1% chance of being anything other than a stomp, I don't know what to say, because you probably need to go to a doctor or something. So the retcon definitely didn't happen there. It also probably didn't happen in the Pain arc, because Pain didn't have much to do with the first Hokage at all. However, there was one thread during the entire Shippuden era, which was Tobi, which we thought was Madara at the time. And he would eventually be the quote-unquote final boss for our heroes to fight against in the war. So that's when Kishimoto probably thought that Madara being at the top tier of power in the verse alongside Hashirama would be a good idea for the characters to fight against in the end of the series. This idea was probably cemented during the 5 Kage Summit arc when Tobi / Obito / Madara explains to Naruto, Kakashi, and Yamato about Indra and Ashura, the sons of the Sage of Six Paths, and that's when things began to take another turn. Now, all of a sudden, the Uchiha and the Senju clans were more powerful than the others, so it would make sense for the leaders of both clans to be the most powerful characters or ninjas in the entire story up until that point. Minato was still considered an extremely powerful and capable ninja, the fastest ever.
Fastest boy.
However, he was no longer the strongest, and the title of God of Shinobi fell upon Hashirama's shoulders. A lot of people say that Hiruzen was the God of Shinobi, but he's actually called the Professor, which is something completely different, and it means a different thing, because you could say a professor is someone that takes care of other people and teaches them, showing the way of ninjutsu, but the God of Shinobi is like the peak of power in the universe, the most powerful ninja of all time. While Hiruzen, he mastered every single ninjutsu in the Leaf Village, he wasn't a Hashirama, man. So the retcon itself probably happened in between the Pain arc and the 5 Kage Summit arc. However, we only get concrete confirmation when we actually see Madara Uchiha in action for the first time, when it's not a brief flashback. And that's when he is summoned via Edo Tensei during the war arc. And yeah, he was way more powerful than any other ninja we had ever seen before. He was casually swapping hands with a billion ninjas at the same time in taijutsu. His fire style could cover the reach of an entire army, and then he summons 2 meteors, very casually wiping out the 4th division, almost killing Onoki, almost killing Gaara. It was very desperate, and then all 5 Kage have to band together to fight him, and they are completely worthless against him because his power is just at another level, and then when he bamps out the perfect Susanoo, things get even more insane. But I don't have to keep going and talk to you about how Madara was much more powerful than anybody else, because everyone knows that. What I want to talk about is whether or not this decision was wise, and if I like it or not, essentially. Minato being the strongest ninja of all time has always seemed a little bit arbitrary to me. Now sure, someone has to be the strongest ninja of all time, but it seemed to me like Minato was that guy in the beginning of the series simply because he was supposed to be Naruto's dad. And yes, this has always been Kishimoto's plan. Minato was always Naruto's dad. That's not a retcon whatsoever. But it seems reasonable that, oh, okay, I'm gonna make the protagonist's dad the most powerful guy ever, the guy who sacrificed himself to make sure Naruto and the Leaf Village would survive, and I'm gonna put the 9 tails inside of Naruto and all that stuff. But okay, that makes sense. Minato has to be extremely powerful because he was a Hokage, but making Hashirama / Madara, I mean, you can include both of them in the same bucket here because they are essentially in the same league of strength, and they were the ones fighting every other week during the Warring States period and creating the Valley of the End and all that. They being more powerful is more interesting for me. I like when a story goes back to its legends and makes them actually stronger. This legendary status that both Madara and Hashirama have, I mean, you can just look at their statues in the Valley of the End, is something I quite enjoy. And if they weren't the most powerful, the godlike shinobis of the past, then I don't know, it wouldn't be as impactful. The Valley of the End itself wouldn't be that big of a deal because, yeah, they were powerful dudes, but this fight, you know, it was okay, but we have guys like Minato right now that would destroy them. I don't like this. I think they should be the strongest. It takes you back to actual legends in real life where people were said to be way stronger than humanly possible. But in this situation, in the Naruto-verse, Madara and Hashirama were that strong, and that's why they were able to found the Leaf Village and put an end to the Warring States period. Even though they were enemies and all that. I mean, I love Madara and Hashirama's story. Maybe I'm just being biased, and maybe it's because I really like those two characters that I like. They're stronger. But still, I think it fits the story so perfectly well that those two characters are insanely powerful. And true, Minato isn't insanely powerful anymore, he's very strong, but he's nowhere near Hashirama and Madara, which makes sense. I mean, Minato died pretty young, so he could have developed even further if you think about it. He was 24 when he sealed the Nine Tails inside of Naruto. And the fight we got between Madara and Hashirama in the manga when Hashirama is telling their story to Sasuke is one of the most jaw-dropping scenes in the entire series, just for the sheer scale and magnitude of the fight. Madara is swinging his sword to break Hashirama's wood style, and he is destroying 1,000 mountaintops in the distance. It's completely insane. I love that fight so much, and that entire volume where their story is told is my favorite volume in the Naruto series. So yeah, I'm probably biased here, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you like the retcon? Do you think Minato should actually have been the strongest ninja of all time? Let me know. Subscribe to this channel, like this video if you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for watching.